Cool.
or this weekend during Hutch Moot. So
Cool.
a celebration of the arts and Christianity. But we'll talk about that in a minute because I think
Okay.
that dovetails nicely with our encouraging word.
Oh, that's true.
So
I think you're right. All right. So I shall begin.
you begin.
Meet me, O Christ, in the stillness of morning. Move me, O Spirit, to quiet my heart. Mend me, O Father, from yesterday's harms. From the discords of yesterday, resurrect my peace. From the discouragements of yesterday, resurrect my hope. From the weariness of yesterday, resurrect my strength. From the doubts of yesterday, resurrect my faith. From the wounds of yesterday, resurrect my love. Let me enter this new day, aware of my need, and awake to your grace, O Lord. Amen.
Amen. So then,
So, Hutchmoot.
put this over here. Well,
Okay.
our encouraging word and our discussion of things that we
yeah.
you know, is the idea that it's not only okay and acceptable to have things that are for the purpose of fun, but also that it's a good idea too.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think that part of the reason that we have trouble with that is that I think we have sometimes a shallow definition of fun, and as a result, though, we cast out all sorts of good and beautiful things along the side, and that's one of the things about Hutchmoot is the idea of the arts and the value of the arts in serving Christ. In Andrew Peterson's book title was what, Adorning the Dark. About, hey, yes, it's a dark world. That doesn't mean that we have to leave it dark, and we can bring beauty and fun and enjoyment in, and that glorifies God.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I think the idea of it's a
agree.
weekend conference kind of thing that we normally would not go to, and in fact, on the one hand, we are going via Zoom
At least part of it.
For at least part
we
of
won't
it.
be able to do all of it because of work and church and such. But
Yes. But anyway, it's an artists and artistic and music, and if you're wondering, who we're talking about when we talk about Andrew Peterson is kind of the lead guy on it. He's the guy who wrote the song "Is He Worthy?"
yes.
And there's several other worship songs that it's very good, and very real. Not a whole lot of fluff coming from him.
Right. We were introduced to him in college when he was when he was touring with Caedmon's Call, and he and Bebo Norman were kind of getting their exposure through Caedmon's Call, and so we heard him for the first a young starting off artist, and so just kind of been exposed to him through this and that. He's also an author.
Yeah.
He writes he writes some of his novels are for like the middle school age, and then
The Wingfeather
yes.
Saga, great books for kids.
And our son is agreeing that those are is that what you were responding to? Yes, great books. Yeah, our son is agreeing.
I haven't read them yet, but like almost everybody on Mechabricks loves them.
Okay, he says all of his friends he's on a website called Mechabricks where they come together and they do Lego designs and that kind of thing, and he said all of his friends on Mechabricks have read them and absolutely love them and rave about them, and so it's a big deal. These are all teenage and preteen boys.
Christmas last. Anyway.
So yeah. One girl in the group. So, but these are these are teenage and preteen guys who are very much into this series. So it's a good series.
So anyway, so that's the idea, and the just the idea of arts and beauty. So we're looking forward to that, and to the worship and the preaching and discussion. One aspect of discussion that I was looking forward to, I think, is probably going to be canceled because the presenter's father passed away yesterday. But it's still going to be it's still a fascinating topic, and hopefully at some point, and I don't know, maybe because everything's being distanced, maybe they'll eliminate the Zoom Q&A, but maybe he'd pre-recorded. But the idea of why fiction is necessary for moral formation, and I think it absolutely is.
Yes.
And I think it's very, very helpful. But anyway, so fun. Go have and we've talked about this before. Go have some fun this weekend, and we get caught in this trap of everything having to be functional.
Yes, and in homeschooling, there's the word for that. We call things that, and it actually started. It's in the Charlotte Mason tradition of homeschooling or
The
philosophy of
Masons.
homeschooling, not the Masons. Charlotte Mason was an educator in England in the 1800s. She is not connected to the Masons. But she coined a term
It's
called
exactly what she would say if she were a Mason.
she was a woman in the 1800s. She was not a Mason. So she coined the term twaddle, which was anything that didn't have meat or substance, specifically a book. Books that were just that had no educational purpose. And in homeschooling circles, there's this mentality that you should, that there's this argument that you should never, ever, ever read anything that's twaddle. Everything you read has to have a purpose and has to have meat and has to have depth. And I've come to disagree with that. Because while we learn greatly through what she called living books, which were anything from historical fiction to biographies to anything that really helped us engage with the world around us and learn and grow and all of that. Sometimes a lot of what homeschoolers define as twaddle has a purpose of just being pure fun and reminding us to laugh and to relax a bit. And we get so uptight with everything having to have a purpose, even the enjoyable things having to have a purpose, where, like, we do need to have a very, very healthy and majority of our fun needs to be things like Hutchmoot that truly are learning and growing. That, we want, just like with food, we have to avoid junk food.
Right. You want to avoid, you can't eat Twinkies every day.
Right. But
Every other day.
but I think sometimes we miss some pleasurable things because we define them as twaddle and say they're meaningless. You're starting to see fall decorations come up around in different places. All it does is it brings a little joy into the world.
That's right.
There is it takes work, it takes effort. There's no real practical purpose. You have to spend money on it. You have to put work into it. And it really doesn't do anything except put some decoration on your house. And so, in one sense, it's twaddle.
Yep.
It's not practical or purposeful, but it brings such fun and joy.
It's fun. As we close in on Christmas, it'll be time to decorate and and celebrate. And I think this is because I see this in preacher circles as well. You'll ask people, well, who are your favorite authors? And then it becomes this race to make sure that you identify very quickly that it's Richard Baxter and John Owen and Al Mohler, and it's all these serious, heavy-duty, theological whatevers, and I'm just sitting there going, C.S. Lewis, and not for his nonfiction.
Yeah, for the fun of Chronicles of Narnia, and for
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, not because I'm learning to observe from Sherlock Holmes, but because it's just fun. Who are Patrick Carr, because it's
vivid.
It's vivid.
Yeah.
So we end up taking ourselves at times too seriously. I don't ever read fiction. I've got too much important stuff to do for that. And you have to be a little bit more aware of your humanity. And we have a need for, yes, you have a need for food first. Food, shelter, clothing, your basic human needs.
Right.
But even, the truth is, even if you were trying to construct or down by the river, feeding, clothing, sheltering the homeless, because the guy that lives in his van down by the river is homeless. The failed motivational speakers, that kind of thing. There is still a place in which to do things that are fun and beautiful and good with that. It's not, It's not appropriate to roll up to a place where people are starving and set out a traveling art museum
Right.
and say, "Oh, look at the art," and then load it up and leave people. They were just as hungry as they were before, and now they're just mad because you just loaded up all the beautiful art and headed off to go eat steak. You need to do both, but human beings cry out and crave beauty,
Right.
and we crave fun things.
Fun
We crave
and laughter and
we make fun of the ancient Greeks and some of the stuff when it comes to astronomy about looking at the stars. It's like, okay, how drunk were the Greeks that is a horse? Okay, people. I mean, let's just be honest here. That is not a horse.
but it was creative and imaginative.
Creative and imaginative. They looked and they wanted to create, and I think that's part of the spark that God has put in all of us, is that desire to create, that quest for beauty. And I think that we educate it out of ourselves. We train it out of ourselves. We beat it down to a point that we are entirely functional.
Well, I know one of my struggles, for example, I enjoy sewing and knitting and that kind of thing. One of my struggles is, well, what can I make that'll actually be useful? And so I end up hampering that aspect of my life because, and it's true, I don't want to just add more junk to the house.
Right.
I've got to be careful with that because I don't want to just add more stuff. But a lot of times I refrain from making something, refrain from considering a gift-giving item or whatever, because it's just another thing.
Yeah.
And it's just something fun and whimsical. But, I'd love to be more like Angela, who made that cute, fat, round, footy tat that's holding a donut.
She made her own, and those of you with internet stuff are probably maybe aware of a specific cat graphic, and it's
Specific type of
Pusheen, and he's this great
He's-
cat.
he's
He's
kinda
cute. He's very
round.
rotund, and he's always doing fun, goofy things. And she made a Pusheen holding a donut,
Donut.
and it is
It's
adorable.
and it's just for the fun of it. I mean, but it's so cute.
It is very, very cute. And so we have that, and then we lose that. I mean, honestly, part of doing this for fun today, and we won't spin the camera around to see him, but we actually installed a cameraman for today,
We did.
and it's a 5-foot stuffed cow
He's sitting behind the camera,
sitting behind the camera.
staring at us, reminding us to be fun and to laugh.
Ew. There's no point in that. There's no point in even owning a 5-foot stuffed cow.
No. Angie does disagree, but that's
Yeah.
Angie.
But it's just fun, because it relaxes. We have one night a week that as a family we try to commit to that we're going to play a game and just to relax, not just to, that good game playing helps teach your children critical thinking skills and how to cope with being a loser, how to cope with winning and with losing, and
We've actually striven to see how hilarious we could make this game because we've been playing spades.
yes.
And we've been doing some wild and crazy things, and it hasn't been about winning. It's been about, what can I do with this hand?
Yes, what can we do with that?
Totally go nil with 4 face cards and 3 spades.
4 face cards and 3 spades, yeah.
That works well. So there's an importance to that, and I think that you have to have the basics lined out, and this is true in a personal life, in a family, in a church. You can't say you don't really start with we're just going to do this for fun. You've got to have we can't look at today, for example, and say, we're just going to do what we can do for fun because you got to work, I got to work. They've got school stuff to do. So we can't just pitch it all and say, oh, well, we're just going to do everything for fun, and we're just going to, until we get the fun settled. But you can start with, hey, this is where we are, and we've got this and this established, So, as we're looking at things like with church, with trying to get things back online, or not back online. We talked about that
We
yesterday.
talked about that yesterday.
Back running like they should for the church coming out of COVID shutdown. We're not necessarily going to back to where we want to be is not back to the exact same schedule that we were before,
Right.
but back on track towards where we want to be, where we've got small groups, where we've got people feeling comfortable coming to in-person worship. We've got to get that before we have the big old church cookout and hamburgers and hot dogs and milling around and getting all up in people's faces. But we do want to get there. You don't start with the fun, but you do want to get there where you've got it. hey, next year, church trip to Travelers games. Every Sunday night that there's a Travelers game, instead of a sermon. That kind of thing. Some of those things that we want to do, and we also want to try to find ways to make sure that they're inclusive of everybody, which is part of why some things we haven't done.
Like
in
every
the
Sunday
past.
night at the Travelers.
Like every Sunday night Travelers games, people can't afford that. You got to pay for tickets. So so just different things like that you want to pay attention to, but you want to be able to do that, and you want to relax and let it go. Go have fun. Do things because they are beautiful. Do things because they bring joy and pleasure. Decorate your house. Put up a Christmas tree. Heck, go ahead and put up your dadgum Christmas tree. I don't care. Don't get a live one yet. It'll be really dead by Christmas. But if you got a plastic one, don't let somebody tell you can't. Unless it's a property owners association that's going to sue you. But
That's another story.
that's a whole nother discussion. Lighten up. Live. You're going to live one way or the other. You might as well have some pleasant moments in the process. So it's not just a slow death march to the grave. Yep. Psalm 125. Israel's stability. A song of ascents. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion. It cannot be shaken. It remains forever. The mountains surround Jerusalem, and the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forever. The scepter of the wicked will not remain over the land allotted to the righteous, so that the righteous will not apply their hands to injustice. Do what is good, Lord, to the good, to those whose hearts are upright. But as for those who turn aside to crooked ways, the Lord will banish them with the evildoers. Peace be with Israel. Father, thank you for today. Lord, I do pray that you'll help us all to have eyes to see places that you give us beauty and fun and enjoyment and pleasure in life. I pray that you'll help us to embrace it and be grateful to you for it. Pray, Lord, that you'll guide us as your people. Help us to walk well with Jesus.